Madry and his people. And this is just some of the proceeds that you see. I'm going to turn it over in a minute to Chief Kemper, Inspector Iglesias. But really, I just want to thank the public first and foremost. We've done a lot of outreach in the last 2 weeks. Everyone is very concerned about the dangers to the community, and we want to put the community at ease that we are doing everything that we can with our partners. We're going to now turn over 4 fresh arrests to the Kings County DA's office to prosecute this. Some of the things we've been seeing is we've seen the same individuals arrested by our narcotics teams multiple times in basically 1 week. Very similar to what we've seen with the heroin overdoses, where we'll see the same individual overdose. In the last 2 weeks with K2, we've had 1 individual overdose 4 times. So for the details of this short-term investigation, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Mike Kemper, and then we'll take questions afterwards.
Good afternoon. This morning, personnel from Detective Bureau Brooklyn North Narcotics executed a search warrant at a residential location located in Brownsville, Brooklyn. Arrested at this location were 4 individuals, 2 males and 2 females. They were charged with possession of K2 with the intent to sell, along with other controlled substance charges. Recovered at this location was a substantial amount of K2, as you can see, which is out in front of me. 1,068 packages of K2 was recovered, some marijuana, some pills, as well as some bullets. It should be noted that the K2 recovered during this search warrant mirrors the K2 that we are attributing to the K2 recovered in Brooklyn North that are making people sick. I'd like to mention that this search warrant was as a result of narcotics investigators having success in their current mission. That is to find the source of the K2 that is making people sick in Brooklyn North. I will say this, cases just like this are active in Brooklyn as I stand here, and more will come. In closing, I want to thank the community of Brooklyn North for their cooperation with us in fighting this K2 scourge. Additionally, I want to thank the personnel assigned to Detective Bureau Brooklyn North's Narcotics Unit for all they do every day, but in particular for this arrest and this search warrant today. Thank you.
Can we take a few questions?
Can you talk about what makes this, obviously you don't want people taking K2, but what makes this particularly dangerous? Why is it making people sick? What's the reckless about this?
Yeah, well, what I will say, and I'm not a chemist, what is very interesting to me when you look at what we're facing with heroin recently and the introduction of fentanyl into the heroin, you're literally playing Russian roulette. It's one thing to take an illegal drug. What people are doing with some of these substances, they're taking illegal drugs with no knowledge whatsoever. And this is the really frightening part of how that compound was made. When you talk about heroin, and we're seeing fentanyl mixed into cocaine, into pills that are pretending to be Xanax pills. So you're really buyer beware in New York City at this point in time, and this is something that we're seeing across the country. But you literally, when you're choosing to take, and we obviously don't recommend that anyone takes any of these substances, what is in that particular substance is really unknown. With K2, these are chemicals that obviously have some mind-altering effects, but this concentration rash, probably due to how it was concocted. In the last 2 weeks, I think you see in the results, 240, that's reported overdoses. Undoubtedly, there's probably more. And really, if there is a silver lining, we have not had a fatality, but my fear is that's going to change. So, yes?
Chief, you mentioned putting fentanyl into cocaine now, and the health department found an alert earlier that there's problems spiking overdoses and things like that.
Say that again, I'm
So
sorry.
the health department put out a warning that there's been a spike in overdose of cocaine regarding fentanyl and cocaine.
Yep.
Oh, is there something we can do about fentanyl and cocaine now and the problem?
Yeah, I think that we've been very responsive, as you see on the table here today, in response. And this isn't a 2-week turnaround. So again, my compliments to the men and women on my right and the quick response acting on the community complaints. But when you talk about heroin and fentanyl, and cocaine and fentanyl and pills that are pretending to be Xanax and they're actually 100% fentanyl. These are things that we've seen. We've seen them recently in New York City, and we've done a tremendous amount of casework, and we continue to do so to try to drive down the overdose problem as it relates to heroin.
Tony?
How close are you to finding the labs where this K2 is fabricated and packaged, or have you been able to do that already?
Yeah, Tony, what I'll say in that respect, no one understands better than Chief Kemper and Miguel on my left. This is, as I said a couple weeks ago, this is the beginning when we lay it out on the table. The work does not stop here. The investigation is active, Tony, and that is the goal, to get back to where it's originating from and to cease it from coming into New York City in the first place.
Tom?
Just following up on what Tony said, back in the day, it used to be, I guess you could get them at bodegas, the K2. Has that changed? Are you still finding them in bodegas? Or how is this K2 getting from the location where you seized it to the public? Like, is it street sales now?
Yeah.
Or-
What we have seen at this point in time is historically in New York City both, but I'll speak in a large sense, not specific to this case. As we apply pressure, as Miguel sends his teams out to combat what we're seeing, we generally see in any crime, and this is included here, we see the criminals adapting and changing. So it's not uncommon for stores that would sell or warehouse these types of drugs to avoid detection and to avoid attention, to then start employing runners or other types to still sell the drugs, but to take it out of the store. These are some things that we frequently see.
You're in the front.
Can you explain why neighborhoods in Brooklyn North seem to be ground zero for K2? Why there and not other boroughs, other parts of Brooklyn? Why those communities?
Yeah, well, that's part of the investigation, why we're seeing the spike in this particular area. I will tell you that we do see 9/11 calls regarding K2 in other parts of the city. Some of it pertains to this investigation, so I'm not going to give too many details. But in terms of the people falling ill and overdosing, you're absolutely right. And that's part of the investigation to determine, is it a unique strand or is it some other factors contributing to this?
Anyone else? Right here.
Can you expand on who's overdosing, some of the demographics that have been impacted by this?
Yeah, I'm going to pass that off to Chief Kemper.
The simple answer to that is there isn't any one individual demographic. We see a mix of sexes, males, females, even the ages range from late teens to, believe it or not, in early 70s. It's a mix. It is not discriminating in just one area.
John?
In K2, it's packaged so you know what it is. You know you shouldn't be doing this and that. But with other drugs, is fentanyl being spec'd for other drugs?
I would disagree in that I don't know that the 10-year-old kid is going to know this is K2.
Well, if you know what it is, you know it's bad. But with other drugs, when people buying cocaine or whatever, how do they know what they're getting, or how do they know it's not fentanyl? How do they know?
Well, you don't, and I think that's the message. And again, our message is fairly simple here. Any substance of an illegal nature that you're putting into your body. We see this with marijuana recently, where sometimes the concentrations could be laced with other things. But my biggest fear as I sit here, and I'm sure Chief Harrison's too, when you look at these, nowhere on it does it say anything evil intent. You see cartoons, you see superheroes, you see things really that a 2 or 3 year old kid is going to naturally gravitate to, and that's my biggest fear. So this is a cooperative effort with all the city agencies, Health Department releasing information a couple weeks ago in partnership with the NYPD, but really the community itself. Miguel, Mike will tell you that a mountain of complaints and concerns from the community in Brooklyn that they do not want this in their community. And we just want to reassure the people of Brooklyn that the NYPD is here to help. Again, thanking, this is a lot of work, and this is just some of the work, if you know me, that I'm willing to talk about today, but there has been a lot of work done in the last 2 weeks. 74 arrests just in Brooklyn involving K2 in 2 weeks. And the majority of those arrests are for individuals selling K2. So there is more work to do for sure, but we have made very good inroads us, our partners, our prosecutors, and the partners in the Kings County DA's office to really get people peddling this poison off the street.
In the back here.
When you say 74 arrests, but you said in some cases some of them are multiple times, so like how many people is that?
We'd have to get you back. I could tell you that one of the individuals, which is concerning to them, one of the individuals arrested today in possession of this had been arrested 8 days ago for a very similar offense.
Tony.
Off the question I asked earlier, like with fentanyl, we see that it's generally comes from outside sources out of the country, perhaps China and other places. Is the K2 fabricated here generally, or does it come from someplace else?
It's all part, Tony. This is not a unique situation to the U.S. When you talk China, certainly they have issues. If you do open source media searches, Japan has had issues with K2, but that's all part of the investigation to see where it stems from. And that doesn't mean that it will solely stem from overseas and that it couldn't be created here.
A couple more in the front here.
How much of a net do you think or hope this has put into the source of K2 making people sick?
I think, unfortunately, we have a lot of work to do still. I think it's a significant dent, and I think it's very clear evidence of our commitment to the people of Brooklyn, but there is still a lot of work to do.
Last question.
Can you talk a little bit about how the difference in the way someone is charged if you're found with 1 packet of K2 as opposed to 1,000 packets of K2? Like, what are the charges that people face, and how does it change over?
Well, I'll say broadly, and then I'll turn it over to Miguel. You know, we hit the warrant today. It's interesting to me that when we hit the search warrant this morning, correct? You see what's on the table here. What you don't see is cocaine, marijuana, heroin packaging, firearms bullets, illegal pills. So it's not a K2 dealer. Let's be clear. It's a drug dealer. And whatever they're going to make money, they will sell, and with no, concern for the buyer. In terms of charges, a lot of work done in the last, I would say, 2 to 4 years in developing charges that can be charged with the K2. But it can be a challenge, and specifically it can be a challenge because of the chemical compound and what that chemical compound actually is when it comes back from the lab. But I'll just turn it over to Miguel for the last word.
Hi, good afternoon. To answer your question, in regards to the charges that are stemmed from the sale and possession of this K2, if you have one preparation, just possessing it, then you're going to be charged with the violation under the administrative code. All right. If you have 10 or more, or you sell it, then you'll be charged with the sale of or possession with intent to sell of the synthetic marijuana K2. Does that answer your question?
Yes, so just quickly, does the violation then lead to an arrest necessarily, or what?
The violation will lead to a summons, a C summons, a criminal court summons.
Thank you,
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Stay here real quick, kid.